Good morning, YouTubers. This is Jason Dean at Film Fanatic YouTube. So, hope everyone's doing good here. It's a Monday morning, around 8:30. So, yeah, lots of stuff I feel like has happened the last few days. So, you know, the focus will be on this amazing movie I just saw. But yeah, figured I'd discuss some things that some of the fun events that have happened this weekend, and some some cool things and some somewhat crazy things that happened. So yeah, hope everyone's doing good. If you get a chance, please like and subscribe to this page. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing some new things. I'm gonna be doing a show really soon for the channel. One of the things that I love doing, and I've only done it a couple of times, is I love doing interview segments. I've done only like two where I've had guests on the show, and those were a blast. And I feel those have been pretty successful as far as creating interest in the channel and the pages. They're the two videos that I've done were pretty spread out. They were back quite a few months ago. So, but I really enjoyed doing them, and I noticed that like people were really chiming in and checking them out. I really enjoyed. I had interviewed a couple different people, and I have two more shows coming up where I'm going to be doing interview segments. That's one thing for this channel, and for the whole in general the whole Film Fanatic thing. Aside from doing my weekly reviews and little blurbs about movies that I've been watching and doing these videos, that's one of the things I really want to try to focus on doing more, because I feel like I don't know, I get a lot of enjoyment. I learn a lot about it, and about the whole kind of film industry, and just I enjoy talking with people about their perspective on films that they love. And I did a show. The first one I did was with Lydia Manson, who is an actress, or who is an actress in the actual industry. She does a lot of low budget horror films, and that was really interesting. And I did that a while back. That was through Facebook Live, and that was a huge show for me and for the page. And it was a real cool, interesting perspective that I got from somebody who is actually in the industry. So that was really, a really great experience. And then quite a few months after that, I had one of my best friends on the show, Sean Russell, who is somebody I had met at college, Berkeley College of Music, and he is also a fellow musician. And he's mostly spent a lot of his time as a composer, and has worked on a lot of television shows. And he's done some low budget film, scoring for some low budget films. And he's a super, movie guy. And he when we had met in college, we used to hang out all the time. But one of the things, he turned me on to a lot of great things, a lot of wonderful music, but also he was really into film, so he really turned me on to a lot of films, and in particular, a lot of directors that I started to really pursue, and which caused me in those following years to start collecting movies as a hobby and as a thing, and it became more and more of a passion, and that was really due to him. So we did a show, the two of us, and that was great. That was like a longer show, and I felt like really interesting. And so the next show I'm going to be doing is going to also be with another great friend of mine, Emmett Lehler, who is a musician who I play in a band with called Split Willow, and he's a great friend. He is also way into horror films. He's way into movies. We we hang out a lot, and it's usually always centered on some kind of movie thing. We went to this year. We've gone to a ton of movies together in the theater, and we hang out and we you know always talk about the films. And he is he's way into and pretty knowledgeable. He's into all kinds of films, but he's way into Stephen King. So we're gonna do a show in the next week that will be uploaded about more or less Stephen King, and we'll talk about probably some other things, but it's going to be centered around his books and his movies and some of the adaptations because there's so many. We were talking about it last night a little bit about certain topics or certain films we could talk about, and I realized, wow, like there's such a range and just so many movies to kind of pick from and to choose from. The old school ones. I'm usually more keen to the old school ones, but there's so many ones that are still coming out that are adaptations of his films, whether they're theatrical movies that come out in the theater or on streaming platforms. So there's a ton of different things to talk about. So I'm really excited about that. We're going to be probably doing that segment probably this week. So stay tuned for that. That will be a lot of fun. And the big one that I'm really, really psyched about that's going to be coming out is I have one of the actresses that was in one of the Friday the 13th movies, A New Beginning. That's going to be happening in probably a few weeks or so. That's pretty. I'm super excited. I did a show, a big show, or shows on the whole Friday the 13th series about a month ago. So this was like part of that and a culmination of all of that. So that's going to be really fun and interesting. And I was really excited how that whole thing came about. I've been watching, I had watched all those movies consecutively, the entire franchise for Friday the 13th. And as I was kind of getting the midway point where I was getting, halfway there, I started thinking of ideas like it would be a cool thing to try to do something special at the end of it to kind of bring it, as a bookend to all the coverage of those films. And it still remains today my favorite franchise in the horror genre. So I reached out. I was able to get in contact with one of the actresses who was one of the leads in one of the movies, and she seemed really approachable, and she seemed excited and open to being a guest on my little show. So that's going to be really exciting. So look forward to these two shows coming up and coming at you pretty soon. I'm really excited about it. So, and I know it will be, a whole new perspective on different things. And like I said, I love doing the interview segments because it's that give and take, and I love discussing film with other people, and particularly people who might be, maybe a little bit more versed or have a different perspective in an area that I am not all that familiar with. So it will be great, especially people who are part of the actual industry that I love. So very, very excited about that. So yeah, the other thing too that happened yesterday, I went to my first horror movie convention with my really great friend Erin Kirkpatrick. She she is a great friend, and we've always had a real big interest in films. We've seen a lot of movies together. We've also been to a lot of movies together. She's a great friend, but she has a lot of experience going to lots of Comic Cons. I've never been to one, which I realized last week. As much as I love film, I don't know what it is that I've never actually been to one. So I was aware, and she had told me that there was a horror convention coming up to Bangor, a big one at the Cross Insurance Center in Bangor, and I had thought I dropped the ball as far as getting tickets, and I wasn't I wasn't. It was 2 days. It was Saturday and then Sunday, and then Saturday I couldn't really do it. I had quite a bit of things, quite a quite a few things going on, so I wasn't able to go to Saturday. And then I realized, well, Sunday I don't have anything going on, so I should try to do it. And so but I wasn't sure if I needed to about the ticket scenario and blah blah blah. But but everything worked out, and I was able to just go to the venue, the Cross Insurance Center. I was able to buy a ticket at the actual venue, and it was super cool. The turnout for Sundays was super mellow, I guess. The Saturday show was actually like pretty busy, but Sunday was pretty mellow, but it was still great. I bought some really cool posters. I bought some pins and all a bunch of different horror propaganda items. So and then the coolest thing, they had like a little. They have the bunch of a whole bunch of guest celebrities there. So they had David Naughton, who I was really excited to see, he was the lead actor in the American Werewolf in London, which is easily one of the greatest werewolf movies ever made, if not the greatest werewolf ever made. I've always loved that film. I've seen it a bazillion times. So he was there, and I got to meet him and got a photo taken with him, and he was very cool. And we talked about the popularity of that film and how I had just seen the they had just re-released American Werewolf in London on 4K with like this extra kind of bonus disc, and it was I don't know how many reissues of that film there's been, but there's been a new one, and he was talking about how he had just done an interview and some commentary for that new package that just came out, and just the continued popularity of that film, because it came out, I believe, in like 1981 or so, and it was not only way ahead of its time, because I believe Richard Baker, who did the effects in it are just like astounding, way before CGI. And the movie itself, the way the film, the narrative of the story, because it's got all these other aspects where it kind of plays out like a black comedy. It's got this surrealist quality to it, and and it's got these elements to the film that I feel like are not like, well, maybe by today's standards would not be politically correct. So I wonder, I didn't really talk to him about it, but I was wondering, like, if a film like this came out, I wonder what the reaction would be. Could it go over, or would there be some kind of protest to it? Because it has a real surrealist quality, and it pushes the envelope in a lot of ways. And it's an incredible movie. So that was really awesome to see him in person, and to meet him and get a photo take with him. So, and I'll show you some of the stuff I got. So part of the one of the cool things about, and again, I'm a total newbie when it comes to going to any kinds of conventions like this. So one of the things you get is you get a lot of free swag, and you can get things that you can get for the price of your ticket, and then they basically have all these vendors. They have there was one really awesome vendor. This is the basic kind of overall artwork for the whole show. It was called the Weekend of the Wicked, and it went all day Saturday night. Saturday was the big day, and then it went Sunday from like I think 11 till about 3 or 4. I got there. We got there around 12:30 or so. So we were able to be there for a few hours, We caught the tail end. So this is one of the posters I got, which I thought was pretty cool. Kind of a cool anime, monster kind of style. That was this was the artwork that was used for the whole production. And then there was a couple of vendors. The one in particular that had all of these awesome vintage movie posters, like the real deal. And I got this one, which I was super excited. This is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one. Super excited. I'm gonna frame this bad boy up and put this up. Yeah, and this is like the original artwork. A lot of the times now for a lot of films and also posters, there, I recently saw one where there's a newer. I'd seen a newer version of John Carpenter's Escape from New York, and it was a new artist rendering, and it was tried to, that movie is such a classic movie, and the artwork was like very modern, but yet it tried to have this retro thing, and it was cool. But for me, you can't beat if you can find things like this where it's like the original artwork, the original kind of print, from that time period when like in particular with Texas when this film was released. You can't beat. Some of the newer editions and artwork is cool, but you can't beat the vintage, the classic stuff. So yeah, pretty psyched about that. I'm gonna be hanging this bad boy up. I'm gonna frame it. Toby Hooper, Texas Chainsaw. And then this one I was really excited about. This is a pretty awesome one. This is Lucio Fulci's Zombie, one of the greatest zombie movies, if not the greatest zombie movie ever made. Such a great movie, and I just thought this was awesome. This is all the original print and original artwork, so I was super excited about that. And again, I'll frame this bad boy up and put this up, and you can't go wrong. Like I've talked about before, part of the attraction to a lot of these old school exploitation horror films is the artwork. It brings back, it's part of it is nostalgic reasons, but when I was a kid, or basically millions of kids when they were in the video store at that time, you'd look on the racks and the VHS, the VHS tapes would be displayed. You would see artwork like this, and that was like what totally, brought you into wanting to see it, because you just can't beat it. Just can't beat it. And I got a bunch of pins. I got this cool hockey mask. Got a cool blade. Pretty nice. Tied with Friday the 13th. Speaking of the show that I just did, and that I'm going to be with the interview that's coming up. I got a bunch of pins that were pretty cool. So yeah, it was pretty cool. And then I got this really cool kind of statue thing. It actually has like a glow in the dark capability. I thought this was really cool. So I got this, and this will be a cool display at night. Pretty interesting, pretty strange and surreal. So yeah, it was cool, and and it was like an all-day thing. So there's another convention coming up, I guess, at the end, or in like 3 months or so. There's another one that's happening in Portland, Maine, which I guess is even bigger than this one. So I'm gonna definitely stay in touch with. Try to stay up to date on like schedules for these conventions, because this is something I need to do. I did a little video where I filmed a little bit of my time there, and I'll put that up of the whole convention. So that was really fun. So yeah, stay tuned for that. It's a little short little video I took. So that was a blast. So I'm gonna try to stay on top of it, because apparently there's a lot of conventions that even come to Maine. So I'm gonna definitely keep a point to focus on when the next one is. So yeah, and the other thing that happened with Quantum, I had a couple of cool Quantum events this weekend, which were on Saturday, and I talked about it in my last video, but it was kind of a crazy period. But it kind of all worked out, and it was just really funny at the end of the day. But about a month or two ago, it was probably a month and a half ago, I had this idea of putting together this show. Like basically, it was going to be just like a get together, a party, and my friends Daniel Richmond and Jillian Reed. They had wanted to have this party in September, and then they had suggested, why don't we have, if you wanted to bring your stuff and do a quantum set, that would be fun. We could set you up on the deck, and we'll have a few friends over and some drinks, and we'll just like basically do that. And I thought, okay, cool. Like, and I didn't think that they were serious at the time because of the location, because where they live is like really centralized. It's right downtown, and there's like hotels all around. The police station is close by. It was right next to they live right next door to River Ducks, which is a real popular ice cream place. And I was like, well, that could be cool, but I don't know what it's going to be like as far as us just setting up our stuff, because they have this big deck, and we were going to just set up on the deck and play a set. And so at first I thought they were kind of kidding around, because I thought, well, how's that going to go over? Like just here, somebody setting up without a permit or whatever, and just having at it. And they live in a private residence, see, but there's all these businesses around. I was like, I don't know how that's going to go over. But then they were, after a couple of days, we talked about it more, and they were pretty serious. They weren't just joking around. And so they were like, yeah, let's do it. We can just set up a little party. We can promote it and have it, kind of closed off, but have it kind of public. And then so at that point, I had the idea of getting my friend Halsey involved, who is an amazing bass player and musician that I love playing with. And originally, this was going to be like his debut to kind of test run his solo project, because he at that point he had never played any of the stuff out, and I've listened to his stuff a lot, and I've always been a big fan. So I've kind of been trying to tried to encourage him to kind of take it out and make it a live thing. So the first idea was to have both of us play. And so we were talking back and forth with Dan and Jillian. I was talking with them about how do you want me to promote the show and go about doing all those kinds of things. And I suggested, well, what about if I do like an event page, on Facebook, basically, if you're hosting an event or promoting a show, you set up these little event pages where it's basically you send it out to people, and you can promote it, you can share it, and you give people the whole kind of gist of what the whole event is about and all those kinds of things. So, and you have an option to either send it to make it private, so it's unshareable, and then just your immediate circle of friends will see it. And then you have it where you can make it public, where people can share it all over the place, and that it's now a little bit more open to the public, and basically anybody can come. So we talked about that, and then they suggested, well, let's make it public and try to get people out there, because what we're going to do is have the bands and the music on the top area where the deck is, and then people can kind of congregate down on the downstairs area, and we might ask like for a $5 donation, but upstairs where the party actually is, and where everybody is, where the bands are located, Dan and Jillian were going to do like a little food thing, and we're going to have that as a little bit more of a private thing, so like there's not people coming up that we necessarily don't know. So it was going to be a little tricky as far as that goes, but that was kind of the idea. And we were going to start at like in the afternoon and play for most of the afternoon, and switch out sets, and then we had to cancel the date. We had to move it up to October 1st, which was this past Saturday, because of a scheduling thing. So by that point, we've been promoting the show for like 3 weeks or so, and it seemed like there was a genuine interest in people, wanting to go. It's always tricky and kind of hard to tell, um, how many people are going to actually come out. But generally, if there's like, what I find, if there's like a buzz and there's like a lot of people interested. We get to like 30 or 40 people interested. It seems like it's legitimate to a degree, in that like people will actually come out. And I noticed like on the event page that was kind of happening. It was like building momentum and people seemed to be excited. But we had to push the date up about a month. So, and during that time I was able to put together this show at Ada's in Rockland, which is an awesome restaurant in Rockland. And so I was able to put together uh, this electronic music show at Ada's. And so that became the focus for quite a while. We only had about a week to 2 weeks to promote it. It kind of came up pretty quickly. But we did that show, promoted it, and I also got Spencer Roulard, who I had just met. I met him about a month ago, and so he jumped on the bill too. And he's a really awesome artist, music. He does a lot of great electronic music, and he does all this killer modular stuff. So he jumped on the bill too. So we did the show at Ada's, and it felt like everything went really, really well. And the other thing that was cool is it ended up being Halsey's debut, and it was a really fantastic show. Um, so right now I'm in the process of trying to book some more things there, and to try to maybe make it into something that can happen, uh, you know, somewhat often, or something that can happen every few months. So kind of working on that now. So stay tuned for that when we get some dates with that kind of a plan. But it was a great show. And then so after that show, the we had this party coming up, Dan and Jillian. So I started focusing on promoting the show even more, and sending out invites, and just sharing it and promoting it. And then just this past Thursday, I was getting out of work and I was going to teach a lesson, a drum set student that I have who lives about 45 minutes away from here. And I was on my way to go down there, and I got these texts and calls from Dan and Jillian, from Jillian, about somehow somehow the event that we were doing, this party, had made it into two or three papers. And my first reaction was like, what? I was shocked, because I did a lot of promotion for the whole thing on Facebook. I just basically sent out a lot of invites, and I kept sharing it and putting it, just around in that kind of format. And but I didn't send it to anything else. I had also been promoting it on my Instagram page at Main Film Fanatic, and I noticed that was helping with the show's promotion. I started using Instagram a little bit more often, and I just started using it. I used it for the Ada show, and I felt like it helped. So that's a thing I'm going to start using more, as another resource to help promote shows, when they happen. But so um, but evidently somehow the party got put in the papers, and I was just like, what? And then the other thing that was, Camden was having, which I had no idea of or no clue of, but Camden was having this like fall weekend festival. They were having various music acts. And they were also doing, there was going to be vendors, and it was going to be kind of spread out around Camden, and part of it was going to be at the library, and spread out around town. And the crazy thing was that somebody had taken an older photo of Quantum, of the band, wrote up their own bio, or wrote up their own description of the show that I didn't do, or had nothing to do with, and they sent it to this festival. And then after that, the festival actually included the band Quantum and this party as one of their events, and they included us in the roster for this festival. And then the other thing that they did was there was apparently there was brochures, like handouts, that were part of it also. So it was on their website and their page, but then it was in also the physical world by being on these like handouts and brochures with pictures of us. And I was just like, oh my god, like what the heck happened? Who did this? Like, and at first I was like kind of aggravated and mad because I didn't send any of that stuff out to anything. I kept it as, you know, I was inviting people that I kind of knew or that I knew, but I was making the event page shareable so people could share it around in on Facebook. But that was about it. That was the extent because it was a public event. So I was just kind of outraged, and I was racking my brain by like, how could that happen? And then what ended up happening after that, because it ended up getting all this press and attention in like two or three different publications, online and offline, and then it made this festival. It got into this festival that was apparently happening. The uh, the town of Camden basically came down on this thing, and the police were involved, um, and also the hotels that were the adjacent hotels that are close by. Those owners of those hotels all chimed in and got in contact with them in the town, saying that this is like an illegal event and that this can't fly, this can't happen. They need permits to have any kind of public performance. And became suddenly what started out as just a little get together kind of party, like a little get together private party where we were going to have music, had taken on this thing as far as the visibility of it, to where it escalated to where it was now going to be this like full on electronic music festival rave event. So the town, once it made the papers, the town freaked out that, and they were picturing that there was going to be hundreds of these rave kids descending into downtown Camden and causing chaos and causing just, you know, craziness everywhere. And they were saying, well, you don't have permits to do this. You need to go through those channels to get a permit. You can't ask for, and you guys were asking for money, like to get in, which we weren't. We had asked for like a suggested donation as just like a possibility, but it wasn't mandatory. There was no tickets. People could just come and show up and do whatever, but there was no ticketed thing. So it was purely suggested. And then the other thing that they cracked down on or the thing that they were worried about as far as parking, they didn't know where people were going to park, and it became this whole event. And so the event was canceled. We decided to cancel the whole thing. But and then the other thing that happened in the midst of it was that Halsey, my friend Halsey, who we were gonna do this with, couldn't do it. He ended up his schedule changed at work, so he wasn't able to do it. So before all of this chaos had happened, I had talked with Spencer, Method for Madness, who played with us at Ada's, about if he wanted to do it. And he was totally on board, because I really dig him a lot. He's a cool guy, super cool guy, and his music is pretty incredible. So I was like, okay, we'll do it. And then all this chaos happened. So in the midst of all of it, we had canceled the event. But then I was like, well, screw it. Let's just do it anyway. But we'll do it instead of there. We'll just do it at my house. So I canceled the event page, and then I put up, and this is all within like a 24-hour period. I canceled the event page. After I got home, I did that. And then I put up a private page. And I sent out about the roughly or close to the numbers of people, this more or less the same people I'd sent the original page out to. I'd sent out these private invites so at least people would know about it. And I knew it was going to be a crapshoot because where the location was at the party, it was super centralized and like you could park anywhere around town. It was walking distance for a lot of people. Where I live, it's like, it's like 15, 20 minutes outside of Camden. You can't, you have to drive. It's out of the way. And, it's not the ideal location for something like that unless there was a lot of promotion for it or whatever. So what ended up happening was we decided to just do it anyway. We had it at my house, but I knew it was going to be a thing of like, well, maybe nobody will show up. Maybe there'll be a couple people, but we're just, I did a lot of work promoting it, and I was psyched to play with Spencer and Method for Madness. So I was like, we just decided to do it. So we ended up doing it anyway, and during the whole time I heard like nobody showed up down in Camden. I didn't think people were going to show up to that because it was canceled and we had a few days notice or whatever. Nobody came down to Camden. This giant mob of rave kids didn't show up in Camden. Like I didn't think that was going to happen, but they were worried about that happening. And then the other scenario was that because it was canceled, people would be, all pissed off and whatnot. So we decided to do it anyway. We had it at my house, and we basically set up all of our gear outside. And I had one friend show up, but it ended up being one of the funnest experiences I've had in a while in a lot of ways because Spencer and I, it was something we've never done before as a band for Quantum, and in that context, I've done it in other contexts where I play drums and that kind of thing, but we never did it with the electronic thing. But basically, what we did was we set up all of our gear together, and we basically just played all. We played like a handful of our Quantum tunes, and then he played with us. So we played with each other at the same time, and it was super fun. Like it was awesome. And the weather got really nice. It ended up being a nice warm day. The sun had come out right as we started, and it was super fun. It was I thought it was a total blast, and it was, even though it was what it was, and the chaos around it, I totally felt like just that part alone of us just playing outside and creating this cool vibe was totally worth it, and it was super fun. I actually recorded it, and it actually came out pretty good. So it was super fun. It was really eye opening, and it just had all of this. All the music went into these really interesting directions, and Spencer's pretty awesome dude. So it was a blast. But my friend Rye, who came to the party, who came to see us play, she was having a party that night, and she had asked if we wanted to go down to the party later that night and play a Quantum set at this house party. I have a few friends, and one in particular who just kind of moved back to the area, and they all kind of got this house together. One of them bought this really nice house, and so the three of them lived there, and they were having like this big kind of housewarming fall party, and they basically set up, they had a bunch of instruments set up and a PA system. And at first, I didn't think she was serious about having us bring all of our stuff down there and do a set, but then found out that that's what she wanted us to do. So what we did was we basically packed up our gear after we played here at my house, and we went to their house and played us, for quite a while down there, and it was super fun. It was a great time. We played out. They have this big kind of lawn, and they don't really have problems with neighbors, and we just set up out there. And it was a little chilly out, but it wasn't too bad. But we played a pretty long set, and it was super fun. It was great, so it was like a little bit of a whirlwind of a day, and you know, and it was great. We got, one of the fun things, we got to debut a brand new song that I have never played before. And Mike, who plays in the band, Mike Whitehead, had not heard before, so we just were like, well, let's just do it, and it was great. It was super fun. It was a super fun party. So so it was great. So stay tuned. The thing with this new thing that I'm trying to work on again with Ada's and maybe some more events that will happen for Quantum. So, but it was a super fun weekend. And then yesterday going up to Comic Con, it was a blast. So yeah, it was a good time. And so this brings me to this just uh, insanely great movie, Satanico Pandemonium. An amazing film. This film is like came out in 1975. It was directed by Gilberto Martinez Solares, and it's a Mexican film. It came out in 1975, like I said, and it's in Spanish. Cecilia Pizel, Enrique Roca, Delia Magana, Clemencia Collin, Veronica Gran, Kate Compare Fuderberg. They were all of the actors and actresses in this film. And this film is like kind of the epitome of exploitation, or more so, there's a kind of a weird subgenre out there called nun exploitation, where basically there are nuns involved with the film. It has elements of horror and lots of satanic imagery and the occult, but basically lots of lesbian scenarios between the nuns. Uh, it's super gory too. It's an amazing movie. This is a movie I've heard about for a long time. It's super sleazy, and this Blu-ray transfer of this film is just amazing. Like the color, the sound, it's all remastered, and it's got some really great interviews. It's got interviews with the director's son and one of the actors that was in the film, and also the company that released this film initially, and just a tremendous film. It's so unbelievably uh, sleazy, this film, and it's got some scenes in it and scenarios in the film where it's generally shocking. Basically, this nun becomes seduced by the devil, Lucifer himself, and is basically put into this. Well, she falls under his spell, and which causes her to commit all of these incredibly heinous acts. And it's about her trying to break away from the power of Lucifer, and she's trying to reclaim her soul. And it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Like a film like this, they were talking. The director's son was talking about how controversial this film is, and still, and especially when it came out, how they were really, really taking a chance. And this director, I've probably seen other films of his, but Gilberto Martinez Solares, he apparently is one of the highest regarded, or was one of the highest and most popular directors in the exploitation world in Mexico. And he has over 200 movies to his title. His son was saying that he was so prolific that at times he was making sometimes 3 to 5 movies a year, which is just like staggering. I mean, a lot of the times now for filmmakers, there's 5 years. There's long gaps between films, and to think that this guy was cranking out these movies left and right, it's just astounding. But this movie is just such an incredible movie. It's there's a few scenes in this film where it's generally it was shocking, and but also super fun and so damn sleazy. Um, and it's pretty gory. There's some good blood and guts, and it's a very satisfying movie. The and the other interesting thing is too was his son, the director's son, had co-wrote the story, and he was talking about when him and his father, when they made this film in the 70s. You know, it, Mexico is, you know, predominantly Christian, and it very much has a uh, the religious right very much has a is at work, and also most, you know, very much in control of Mexico. And so they were talking about how they, you know, caught up in all of this crazy superstition around that, and how hard this film was to be made, but somehow they were able to get this film released, and it was actually a hit, and it was like a significant thing. And they felt that it could be, the way they tried to market this film so it could be released was that it could be set up to where it could be open ended, open up to interpretation, where it's not like anti Christian per se, but it could be a thing of where the nun, who's the central character, is like questioning things, but she's having these dreams, and she's struggling with it about what's happening, and that this is not actually her reality. So it had that kind of ambiguous thing to it, and then but then the other side of it could be where she actually had direct contact with Lucifer himself. So because they tried to market the film where it could have this open-ended interpretation, they were somehow able to get the film released, and it was, which is, you know, mind-boggling and staggering. But the director's son also talked about, um, there's a really great interview with him, and he was talking about, because of this film, he had done all kinds of research on, you know, all things pertaining to the occult and whatnot. And he said that it kind of reaffirmed his faith in God and Christianity. And so since then, he basically swore off ever making to ever making a film that was related to these subjects ever again. And my first reaction was like, that's kind of shocking. But then I also felt, well, if this person actually did actual, you know, some actual, put in some actual time where he researched about what the occult was, or what Satanism was for that matter, you know, and looked at some good resources, then he would have realized it's just the land of make believe, and that he'd probably come away believing in actually nothing and become an atheist. So, but it was interesting. So he swore off the idea, or the any future prospects of tackling any films that were in this genre. So, but an amazing film, and Satanic Pandemonium, killer movie, wild. One of the wildest movies I've seen in a while, and I'm super excited that I bought this on Blu-ray. So this is Jason Dean. Thanks again, and we will see you next time. If you get a chance, like and subscribe to my page. Thank you. Peace.